So it's time to take another trip back in time. We're going back to 1953, a time where comic books were a relatively fresh medium and mostly unregulated, which led to a lot of these amazing horror comics coming out of the time. As a matter of fact, comic books were fairly unregulated at the time. Even Batman used to literally carry a gun and murder people. But this didn't exactly sit well with parents, and so the comic book code of authority was invented, and Batman went from this stone-cold, hardened killer to a dude who was turned into babies, fought aliens, and has a child sidekick because that would make it more marketable to children. You see, the comic book's code of authority basically came in and said if you want to sell these books to children, which was the main demographic of comics at the time, then you have to make them child-friendly. And so Batman is no longer a gritty detective. He is a fun Saturday morning cartoon-esque character. So this time, jumping forward, we're headed up until the 1990s, where the comic book code of authority is basically dead. Simply put, the children that grew up reading the books grew up, and so the comic books had to grow up too. And most of the parents who had put the comic book code of authority in place were succeeded by children who grew up under it and very much disliked it. And so they got rid of it when they became adults. Which led to the rise of great comic books. Once again, Batman was taken seriously. We had great books like The Long Halloween and Batman The Dark Knight Returns being released in the 90s. Hell, we had an entire Batman animated series that was dedicated towards being more gritty while also still proving that it could be for children. And it's one of the most beloved Batman pieces of media to exist in the modern age. We even got, in 1989, one of the most gritty and sort of real takes on Batman media we'd ever seen. Hell, Batman even went back to killing people in these movies. But, of course, with everything, Batman's almost like a loop. We then looped back to campy, crazy, fan-servicey Batman movies with Batman and Robin, which killed off Batman in film for a long time, and nobody knew how to adapt him further. And so we make our final time jump to the 2000s, where Christian Bale's Batman has just burst onto the scenes and has been critically acclaimed. They love the dark, gritty take on Batman we've looped back to in the movies. But in animation, we see something far different. Hot off the heels of 2004's The Batman cartoon, we get something so campy and so silver-aged. I'll just play the intro of the show for you. Okay, that's enough of that. I've already caught enough of the copyright bug this week. But yes, officially 3 minutes and 15 seconds into the video, we are finally talking about what the title and thumbnail spoke about, which is Batman the Brave and the Bold. A love letter to Silver Age comics and Batman's history. And I really wanted to tackle the first episode of the show, which ironically enough is my personal favorite. Every single episode of this show opens like a typical Saturday morning cartoon, where Batman and one of his many sidekicks and or friends that he works with throughout this show team up together and thwart a villain for about the first 5 to 6 minutes of every single episode, which really does just add to that feel of random, silver-aged comic book. You don't know what's going to happen when you pick it up. Even down to the gadgets and just the way Batman seems to talk to himself in each and every one of these episodes.
Let's clean the king's clock.
Yeah, you heard it right. Batman does quips in this show. But the real episode starts with Jaime Reyes, or better known as the Blue Beetle, who is the focus of this episode and the focus of the very first episode of this show. Now, let's take a second and talk about which Blue Beetle we're talking about, because there's been 3. We're going to be talking about Jaime Reyes, who is all the way to the right on your screen, at least I hope that's correct. Regardless, there were 2 Blue Beetles before him, Ted Kord, and I don't remember the name of the first guy. I will have my editor put it on screen. Regardless, Jaime Reyes is the third in line to receive the powers of the Blue Beetle and the Scarab, and so Batman has come to test him of sorts to see if he is hero material. And that's what this entire episode is about. It's about testing if Blue Beetle's hero material, but the test doesn't exactly go as planned because Jaime has all of about zero control of the Scarab, and instead of stopping the giant meteor that is threatening Earth, he ends up teleporting him and Batman into a wormhole onto the other side of the Milky Way galaxy. And of course, Blue Beetle was brought there for what was a pretty damn good reason. You see, this alien tyrant named Kanjar-Ro is terrorizing a group of sentient power banks, essentially. He is taking these alien people who are real living beings and using them as live battery packs. And of course, that doesn't sit well with any sort of protagonist. But Blue Beetle is like a god to these people. He comes whenever they're in trouble and he saves them. Or at least the previous Blue Beetle did. Because Jaime is literally brand new to this shit. And he is very, very not ready for this.
This is for you, for returning.
Okay, what do you want me to do, Bats?
We're going to need an arm.
Funnily enough, Batman himself is not the main focus of his own TV show in this episode. Batman in this show is a lot less focused on himself, and it's more about every guest star that appears and the reoccurring characters that appear in this show. Batman is more or less there as this guiding beacon of wisdom to give advice to these younger heroes.
I guess they're not the only ones I'm worried about.
Just remember, this will get you out of a lot more jams than this.
I mean, I personally just find it funny that Batman takes a backseat in his own cartoon, especially in the first episode. But I think it really does set the tone well of what the 1950s through 1970s Batman comics were. They were just goofy, silly adventures with little to no character development and little no overarching story. And I think that makes it perfect for a Saturday morning cartoon adaptation. You bring in new characters every Saturday, and you have them come on screen and display their personalities and sort of have a fun, whimsical adventure where Batman and Blue Beetle team up to fight space aliens, where Batman doesn't need to breathe in the upper atmosphere of whatever planet he's at. And Jaime sort of lets victory go to his head a little, and he thinks he's far more prepared to deal with Kanjar-Ro than he actually is, and even disregards Batman and his advice, which I'm surprised Batman takes so lightly. And well, Jaime just has to eat this L, pretty much. It's part of him learning. And of course, Batman is a friggin' superhero with super strength in this show, dodging lasers and things of that nature. I love this show. It is goofy and silly, and it is not supposed to be taken extremely serious. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't at some times have good lessons or even an interesting plot behind the episode. Batman spends most of the episode proving why his brains are superior to any sort of tech or any sort of brawn that is around. He uses his brain the entire episode to stave off and to fight alien creatures, and he sort of imparts that same wisdom on to Jaime. As well, in this cartoon, we see a lot of things that you probably won't see in most other cartoons, especially with villains just outright taking the superhero's costume and abilities, which I always found absolutely terrifying. That dude looks really creepy. But not all of Batman's lessons were lost on Jaime. He finally starts to use that admittedly empty brain of his to get his way out of the trap, and he's going to use what the villain used on him against him. So Jaime does exactly as I just said, goes out there, saves Batman, and saves the day, because in the end, it's your mind that's the real weapon. It's not the weapon you wear. As you can see, that's a pretty damn shallow analysis for my channel, but I'm gonna be honest with you all, there's not much to analyze on this show. I just really wanted to talk about it because I really love this show. And of course, at the end of the day, Batman and Blue Beetle are triumphant and they're heroes to the people. Except for the fact that Batman does get his own statue. It's just a lot smaller than Blue Beetle's. Oh, I love it, man. Oh, and now they finally get to go back and deal with the meteorite that they abandoned. And I love Batman's introspection on this portion.
It's like no time's passed since we left.
Due to the quantum anomalies of wormholes, none has. Of course, that's just a fancy way of saying that's weird. But half the things I encounter on this job make no sense. Take this mission. I wanted to see if the kid had hero potential. Instead, I got to see him become one. Ready, partner?
So that is Batman the Brave and the Bold. It's DC's little love letter to old Batman comics that we will probably never see another adaptation of like this anytime soon, unfortunately. Despite the show going on for about 5 seasons, being wildly popular, and being beloved by fans. So I just want to take another moment to say thank you all for watching. I really enjoyed making this video. I got to nerd out about some comics. I got to make my editor's life hell with all the things I've requested to be put in this video, especially in the beginning. And I just wanted to say thank you all again. As I record this, we're closing in on 600 subscribers. That is 600 of y'all that are just on my channel watching my black ass sit here and talk about comic books and movies and all that other bullshit. And I can't be more thankful. So shout out y'all. If you made it this far in the video, comment me your favorite Batman cartoon, for engagement's sake. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that supports me on Patreon or on YouTube. If you want to join my Patreon, videos are unedited and early. So thank you all for watching, and I'm out.